me see.
Saying it's streaming on my end, so.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to check it out, make sure we're live. I see us. Okay, perfect. Okay. Hi, I'm with Kyra King, who is Miss Arizona, and she and I connected through a mutual friend, Eric Schleen. So thank you, Eric, for the connection. And I have her on today because we have so much in common and we wanted to have a conversation about what's on the forefront of both of our minds, school initiatives and wellness and well-being. So I'm so excited to have you, Kyra. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I know when we first met, I felt like we could go on about topics and it was just supposed to be a brief conversation. So I think we both were like, let's talk later. So I'm glad that we have a chance to do that today.
Me too. And it's really funny because like I feel like there is such a kinship in this work that we're doing different work, but it is so aligned that this ends up happening to me all the time. Someone's like, hey, I know someone you should know. And then we're like, so it's great to do it here because the other thing is like on Facebook, we usually get a lot of people tuning in and just wanting to know what's happening in the world of like children and wellness and yoga and mindfulness. So I wanted you to tell me and everyone who may listen now or later what you're up to as Miss Arizona, and you know what you're, because I know you're doing stuff with the schools, and I'm really excited about that because that's my wheelhouse and so I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so right before I decided to enter the pageant, I was asked to be the chairperson for the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee for the Parent Council for our school district here in Scottsdale. And, I was very active on social media about current issues, and I've had quite a lot of personal experience with diversity issues, to group it all together, I guess you would say. I have biracial sons and have gone through quite a lot and have already seen even the disparities and discrimination within the school system. So I jumped on that and I just told everyone, hey, I'm new to the area. I'm new to even like the school system. I don't know how things work here. So if you can bear with me as I learn as I go, I'd be glad to take that on. So I did. And then I decided to enter this pageant because a friend reached out to me and was like, you should do this. You'd be perfect for it. You already have like stage experience, and I've never done a pageant before, but
Oh my gosh, that was your first pageant? I just assumed
yeah.
you were.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I didn't know what it was all about. I didn't even know there was a category for single moms. And so she was like, well, what are your goals? And I said, my goals are, right now I really want to get out in the community more. I want to really establish community here in Arizona and, like a lot of different stuff like that. And she was just like, that's perfect for you then. Like, do this. It's all about, your platform. It's not just about the glamour stuff, but I found that actually all that stuff is really fun too. So
Yeah.
it's been a whirlwind since I won the title, and just continuing the work in the schools. I have a lot of passionate parents, and they're branching off and doing subcommittees under the equity committee now, in regards to LGBTQ plus rights. Even we've talked about foster care, just different things that all kind of fall under the umbrella of equity. I even had a parent reach out to me about her getting flack last year for breastfeeding her baby in front of a class. So lots of different stories, a lot of different issues. And me as a single mom, like I've, encountered some very, relatable issues to all of that. So I think we're just, we're trying to figure out different initiatives and how to make the school culture more inclusive and, directly relating to children of color, but also for invisible disabilities. It's a broad range of people that it will affect. It will actually benefit everybody, because once those populations feel safe and taken care of, then everybody is raised up, right? So I'm talking to a different nonprofit pretty much every week and seeing who can partner with us and what I can do for them, whether it's showing up for ACLU for a lobby day and trying to get a policy passed to, prevent suspensions and expulsions for long periods of time, things like that, so.
It's really cool. And I think like as a parent of children that are biracial, you have a front row seat because you were raised, socialized as a white person, and then you have sons that are being looked at as something different than you, but they're your kin and they're your babies. And so I think that is a journey that a lot of people are not privy to that care. Like I know personally, like I've been working in intentionally diverse schools for a long time that really do inclusion well. And there's like a lot of LGBTQ plus parents, and the kids are from every background, and most of the independent schools I work with have scholarships, so it's even economically diverse. And I've really enjoyed that, but I do sometimes feel like it would be really beneficial to me to talk to more people like you who are really like experiencing that as a family firsthand. And I'm married to a gender nonconforming, my spouse is a trans person, so it's been something I don't really talk about. And I think it's funny because part of me like is afraid as my online persona that I have to be like in this box, and like I can't be like looked at as something. And it's really not about me, it's about my family. And I now realize like how important inclusion will be. Like I don't want my daughter to be excluded for that, just like you don't want your sons to be excluded for the color of their skin or these invisible disabilities. Which, as somebody who's been working in schools for like 20 years, I'll tell you, most people have something, and there's very few typical learners. And it's not that everything's diagnosable, it's that what you're talking about is true. Like not everybody feels safe in their body or in their experience. And when you do slow down and create a feeling of safety, learning happens, and trust and relationship. You cannot have education without relationships. So I'm excited to hear about all the relationships you're forging, because I think those are where things happen. And I've tried to be like a lone soldier for a long time in this work, and realized that over the past few months, I've been talking to one new person every week, doing these like live streams. And it does make me feel like we are in this together, and we're not, like on our own, and we have each other. And I think we need to use each other as a resource and say, hey, I need your help, I need your support. There's this thing that everybody needs to know about. But I even know like I'm a political speculator, like I'm very interested in politics, but I have sort of been frozen. And the more actual people like you that I know, that you're like a regular person. Yes, you entered a pageant, but that doesn't mean you're not a regular person. You're a human being that's a parent like me, and you're doing something on a political level to be more involved in your community. So I just want to tell you that's amazing, because I've been in political paralysis for about actually since Trump got elected. I have been in political paralysis, just listening but unable to move forward. So thank you for all the things you're doing. I want to hear about maybe one of the nonprofits you've been talking to, or some of the things that you have going on, and how I can help, and how my base and your base can help us.
Just a little bit about what you just said. First, I want to also bring light to these issues in a way that is nonpartisan, because they're issues that affect everybody on all ends of the spectrum. And it shouldn't just be that because you're about diversity and equity that you're automatically grouped into like, you're a Democrat now, you're a liberal. That's not what it is. Like I personally, I don't really subscribe to any of it. But it doesn't, and eventually to vote, like you do have to choose a side, but
Right.
it's what I want to create is a feeling of unity, in the sense of like, just because I have seen some really bad experiences with police firsthand. My son does not have the greatest view of police himself because what he's seen firsthand, and it was racially motivated. But that doesn't mean that I hate cops. And
Right.
I
That's too simple, and that's too black and white to
yeah,
say.
I also want to, one of the things I want to do is to open up dialogue with police. And I know that the lady who runs the police out here in Phoenix, she's a Black woman, And there's all different races in the police force. It is a culture issue, I think, for
Yeah,
sure. Um, and it's just like anything, when you achieve some level of power, sometimes that's a little distorted, and maybe your intentions first coming into it, as you might know, even as an educator, becoming a teacher and being really gung-ho about all the difference you're going to make. And then sometimes you get a little bit jaded by the process and by
absolutely.
burnout. And so, all of that I understand. And I would like to open up dialogue with people on
Mm.
all sides, and really have us understand each other a little bit better and see what we can do to create actual solutions, because, the divide is not helping anything. So,
I think that's really well said, that like it's unfortunate that you have to be like categorized like as a liberal snowflake if you care about inclusion, representation. Like those are all the values. I consider my organization non-political, because I want to be as inclusive as possible as well. And just hearing you talk about wanting to have dialogue is inspiring, because I personally have had some very bad interactions with police. I felt like I was treated very unfairly many times. Even just being out of state with northern plates when I went to college in the South, I was like harassed on a daily basis and pulled over every time I drove, literally. And I can only imagine what it would be like to also fear. Like I was fearing economically and about my car insurance, and anxiety about getting to work on time, but I didn't also fear violence. Um, but I do have to say, it it made me want to turn away, and I think it's really brave to turn toward the source of a lot of, and because I do think that you're right. There's a burnout, there's a jaded energy that comes from being exhausted by the social ills, and police are being asked to do a job that, and so are teachers actually. We are being asked to do something in society that is so expansive. And that's why like my career even exists, because schools are being asked to teach values and personal like personal skills like social emotional development, and um, there's a hole in that education. And I know as an educator, I'm still learning it. I'm learning it with I'm doing it for them and for me. And it's like, I think the more we open up about how much we have a deficit of knowledge and a deficit of skills and are willing to learn, that humility will create the bridge. But I do think it's really scary to say I don't know enough. I'm still working. I'm an evolving process. I'm making mistakes. And I can forgive yours because I'm also making them. I think it's very much like your mistakes are bad and we're on the good side. And I don't think that it is too complex to have sides. Like there is no clear us and them.
right. Yeah, and I think that it is hard. I think that's a great point to admit, that people in general, like I don't know everything, but it's, we expect so much out of teachers and out of staff, and they're already doing so much that, I see more like trainings and giving them tools, which our school system is actually really great at doing. They're already putting them through the social emotional training and all that stuff.
Which training are they doing? Which SEL? You
I'm
know,
not I'm not sure, but I know that they're already putting them through professional development trainings, and they already do so much, and they put in so much work, but it's also a matter of the culture training, right, with different kids. And children are relational learners. If they feel that the staff of their school is not on their side and is
yeah,
against them, they're going to probably start to do poorly in school.
yeah.
And
I've seen that. I've seen a lot of that. Like um, I've seen the good and the bad of that, where like kids really do see that when the trust and rapport is built, like they see the relationship and they're willing to show up. And I've seen the opposite, and I've seen a kid vacate their body for like a whole year that I've been in the
yeah.
room. I've seen both, and it is really difficult. Um, I think it's great that the school is going through the training. And I'll tell you, teachers are, so say you're a teacher for 30 years and there's a new training every year, and it's always the savior training. Like this is going to make it better. And this is going to make it better. And I think and I've seen this because I go in and I'm asked to do these trainings as well. I do a lot of these like beginning of the school year courses with the teachers. And you're hit with those people who are just unable to bring in any new information because they've been asked to bring in so many new initiatives and concepts. And so I want to give them compassion and understanding. And I also want to acknowledge, like, me or someone that was an SEL, like, person, we don't have all of the answers and tools, but we do have some science-backed ideas that have proof in the pudding in our environments and different school districts across the country and world. And if the teachers or police or whoever it is in the scenario are willing to have somewhat of an open mind and go through a little bit of a process, but still keep the autonomy of, like, I'm going to figure out how this works in my classroom. I'm going to do this in my own way. I think that can be more empowering than this feeling. And I know they have this feeling because I've talked to teachers for the last 20 years. They are sick of being told how to change every 3 to 5 years. This is the new thing we care about. So I just want to give those people compassion, and I'm grateful that they're even showing up to the trainings. But if they're not showing up with an open mind and an open heart, it's hard to make change happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing. I think there should be more support structures, and so that not everything's on their shoulders. Like, we have a very bad mental health professional to student ratio. It's like 900 to 1.
Whoa.
So
there's no room for relationship building there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's chances are there's not even a mental health professional on site in a school. And I think that, across the board, I've heard that a lot of people are on board with trying to change that, because I think that could help a lot. We need to also give staff options, so not everything they have to deal with. Just the same in kind of what I believe with the police. Like, maybe they shouldn't have to deal with everything. They should deal with things that are more, in their wheelhouse or spectrum. So,
like crime and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, it's true. I think that teachers and police are both being asked to deal with mental health issues, and that mental health issues are on the rise in an extreme way. So how do we look at the structures that keep our world together? And this is the most interesting year I've ever been an educator, because we are not open for business. Like, yes, all of the people, I teach teachers for a living, so I'm in touch with so many teachers, and some of them are in person, most of them are not, most of them are virtual. And so even the body language cues and things that we would have had to be privy to what that student is experiencing, we're losing some of that. And so it's even more important that the school, I want the school to be able to absorb and be there and provide these services, but it just so telling of, like, what needs to be happening outside of school as well. Like, how do we address the shifting mental health of the country, and acknowledge, like, we can't do all of it in school, but what can we do? So I've seen some schools do really cool things. Like, one of my graduates, her mom is an SEL teacher and yoga teacher full time. So her classroom, the students come, they do their practice with her, and they learn all the tools, and, like, that is so amazing. And she's been doing that for years. And another one of my colleagues in Maryland is doing that full time, 9th year. So there's some more, and they're not mental health professionals, but they are doing sort of the, like, non-crisis work.
mental wellness.
The overall wellness. They're providing those overall tools. And more I hear, like, people coming into my trainings from districts saying, I want to create this position in my school, so that the counselor is only doing the mental health portion. That's maybe like when somebody has a diagnosis or something, and then that other person's teaching the skills that are, non-crisis oriented daily life skills.
Right. And I think that's also a good point, because I also want to destigmatize, like, a mental health professional doesn't actually mean that only people with mental health problems. They're there to help different situations in school, and even maybe a kid who's having a bad day, who's not
Right.
doesn't have a mental health problem, but asking them how they're doing and what's happening at home, instead of making them wrong for having a bad day, or writing them up, or suspending them, giving them a strike. And that's kind of where I want to go with the mental health professionals. But I think also maybe, you know, that's a great point, that there could be people that are actually trained in overall wellness that aren't necessarily, you know, a trained therapist or a psychologist, because that, you know, there's probably less of those to go around in the schools, but people who have that accreditation or some type of training in SEL and overall wellness and like yoga, you know, like what you guys are doing could actually help a lot and
I think
fill that void.
it's kind of it's a great combination. And in the school systems, I've seen that they have a full-time designated counselor. They always have too full of a load. And then they're also asking that person to train with me and then do PD, professional development for. And the problem is that person is just starting to get it for themselves. So they shouldn't be passing the knowledge on. It has to be a separate person.
Right.
But to have a designated person like that, I think is really, it's a model I've seen work really well. But I also think like 900 to 1 is clearly not the right ratio, because you're right. I think you don't have to have a diagnosis of anxiety disorder, because 1 in 3 Americans have actually a diagnosis of, if they were to go get seen, 1 in 3 people would be diagnosed with anxiety disorder. So even off the bat, looking at 1 in 3 kids, they are very likely they're experiencing anxiety.
Yeah.
It's getting higher, and these things are associated with how much time we spend indoors and on the screen. Also, there's a lot of connection there. So we are going to be on the screens. So how do we get the kids outside? And how do we, I really like your Instagram videos. I like your little workouts and things, because I do the same thing. I go outside and I just like take a bike ride, or I, do my yoga practice. I really like the fact that you're just showing it, and it's not these long, ornate things. It's really accessible, tangible. I mean, you're more flexible than the average Joe, but I'm also a yogi. So I like, just as long as people don't look at it and say, oh, look at how flexible Miss Arizona is. No, that's not it. It's like you're showing that each day you can do a little bit and get outside and move your body. And I think that's also a form of leadership I've seen in the like 2 weeks I've known you. I've seen you showing that I think is positive. Like, this is my practice. This is what it looks like. That people can get ideas for their own.
And I that's another thing too. I've actually never gotten trained in yoga. I've taken yoga throughout the years. I'm a trained dancer. Did that professionally, but not everybody is a yogi. Not everybody's a dancer. Not everybody, but if you just go outside in the beginning of your day and do your grounding, which is like, getting the energy from the earth and putting your bare feet on the bare earth, right? And recruiting that energy and doing some deep breathing, and let the sun hit your skin for a few minutes, and do a little stretching, whatever feels good for your body. Just loosen yourself up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I promise you, like, your day will go so much better after that. You don't have to do, a lot of people are scared of meditation. Okay. Yeah. Even I don't get meditation. I don't get it in every day. I've done some great meditations. Mm-hmm. I've been guided, and I think, some great like chakra meditations and things like that. But on a daily basis, I don't really do it. And I know most people don't. Yeah. So it's just simple kind of mindfulness exercises, I think, that are more practical and more accessible, like you said, that actually change somebody's day, and they can actually do it. It's doable.
That's like exactly what the Self-Care Saturday initiative I did is all about, or I'm doing. It's only been 1 week of 10, because I recognize, so many people come to me and they're like, hey, I wanted to sign up for I'm not going to mention which schools, but I wanted to sign up for this meditation course or mindfulness course, but the requirement is 20 minutes of meditation every morning and night, and I can't do that. And so I said, how do we take away the barrier to entry? And so all of my mindfulness courses are that way, but the Self-Care Saturday was the most basic. It's like, how do you get joy and presence out of the daily activities we're going to be doing anyways? And some of it's just how you wake up in the morning. Some of it's how you move your body. So it's exactly what you're describing, but I just wanted to give I think sometimes people are afraid to get creative or don't know where to start. So I wanted to just do like worksheets and really short videos and little things that show things I have done in my life, or that I do with my students, and that have helped me. And I think that's exactly what your videos also provide. It's like we are able to demonstrate to the people watching, because we're all leaders, like whether or not you know you're clearly in a leadership position as like somebody who's in the public eye, but not everybody realizes they're a leader. And anybody who's being around people, who's got social media, who's being even if you're just interacting with your family, you are a leader. And so in some way, like knowing that responsibility and knowing the way you live is going to impact everyone around you, whether it's positive thinking or moving your body, you're teaching someone how to live, especially if you've got kids around you. And so it's really important to just like get up and do it, get up and do something.
And it's so hard even for us, like you said earlier, like I have to walk the walk because I'm feeling a little stressed out right now. It's like even for us who are more like trained in this wellness area and arena, whatever you want to call it, it's like we still have a hard time walking the talk sometimes, and we still fall short, and we still get stressed out and forget to implement out like the things that we tell other people to do, right? But
the ebb and flow is also part of it. I think like we have to acknowledge and recognize that we cannot 100% of the time be anything. And in yoga, it's called like practice and detachment from practice, that we have a dedicated practice. And sometimes we don't have access to that, whether it's because we're going through mental health issues. Like I've been crying for a week. I've been overwhelmed and tired and whatever. But actually, that's because I started to do my practices again after a long time of not prioritizing myself, and I'm feeling my feelings. And I think people that don't let themselves feel their feelings, which is like a lot of us, because we just do Netflix after work, keep yourself busy and stressed. When you're busy and stressed, you don't recognize the depth of everything underneath. And so one of the reasons I think people don't get into a practice is when you start to breathe and see what's there. If it's not roses and shiny and beautiful glitter and rainbows, which most of us are not going to have that if we're unexamined, it's going to be harder before it's better. So like whenever people, actually I'm doing a mindfulness training tonight with my cohort, and it gets worse before it gets better. Usually when you start to, and with exercise too, like you feel how difficult it is when you first get out there and you're like, but people need to be willing to put in the time to go through that discomfort and like going through the motions part to become regular. And then once you're regular, it's easy. And when you go away from your regular practice, you might want to ask yourself, like, what practices do I need now? And if you need a little vacation from it, like recognize when you're doing that. And like, I realized I was like, I'm completely dissociated from my life. And I called myself on it. And so it's important also to be real with yourself, especially when we are parents. Like we're putting our kids first, we're putting our careers first, and to get real with yourself and say, hey, I haven't been walking the walk, and then do it. That is itself a form of leadership. To be like, I am recognizing the deficit, and I'm willing to start now, even though it hurts and it's hard.
Yeah. There's and I just mentioned that because, people getting into it, sometimes they'll miss a day or something and feel like a failure. Like, oh, I'm not going to even do this because I can't keep up with it, or I can't do it. And it's just like, you know what, we all do that. And if you just, it's better than, falling off completely and just saying you can't do it. Like miss a few days or whatever, get back on. Like it'll, they say even with meditation, like you don't start over every time. You actually start, like if you've done several rounds of meditation, you're going to start where you left off, even if you miss sometimes. Like you're not going to have to start over every single time. And that's, same goes for everything. Exercise, you're going to get stronger. Yep. It's going to get easier, then it'll get harder. Sometimes it's not linear at all, but
I don't think it's linear. And I think that's true with meditation. It's like the first times people meditate is like usually really hard, and then it gets so peaceful, and then like the bosses get harder. It's like when you like beat a video game level. But I think it's true. It's like knowing it's not linear and knowing it's okay for it to ebb and flow. I have like a really great tool I use, which is like, I would rather do 5 minutes than nothing. And I think people put the pressure, like I have to do 100 minutes of exercise. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. You need to do something. And if you don't, you're going to feel anxious or depressed, right? You have to breathe. You have to move. You said like, get up and stretch. Exactly. But you could do 5 minutes and have a better day than if you do 0 minutes.
And chances are, if you start and you say, I'm going to do this for 2 minutes, and you start, you're going to feel good, and you're going to keep going probably for 10 minutes or whatever,
Exactly.
As long as you start, and but yeah, I'd like to know more about what you do, because I think I get the general idea, but I am looking for having a wellness background, and coming into doing all of this school reform. I'm really into the policy and changing things on a legislative level, and also with parents, and really like making sure people are heard and seeing what we can do internally with schools. I think part of that really is that intersectionality between wellness and all of the stuff that I'm doing. It's such an important component. And I think that if we just made the school climate more therapeutic in general, and that involves the mental health professionals, that involves the what you're doing with training people with the SEL and yoga, and having maybe some yoga classes or mindfulness breaks. Kids have such little time outside.
Mm-hmm.
They have such few breaks, and their lunch is like 15 minutes, and they can't even finish their lunch, and they're done.
Yeah, they're waiting in line. It's so crazy.
And so, yeah, I feel like if it was just more therapeutic in general, and that includes the yoga and the mindfulness, that a lot of problems would actually be solved. So yeah, if you want to tell me more.
Sure, and thank you for asking. And my job is kind of like multifaceted, so I'll tell you about the different aspects of what I've been up to. So I actually started as a classroom teacher. I was a Spanish immersion early childhood educator, and we started an SEL program, and I recognized that the kids really were succeeding in like being able to express themselves and talk about their feelings. And so it became a really big piece of what we did. And I actually wasn't even the one that was trained in it. One of my colleagues was trained in it, but we were offered these kits, and it was sort of like read off the card, and, and it included like puppet shows. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take this, I'm going to make this into something that feels like authentic and organic for myself. And so at the time I was doing yoga, and I realized, like, to me, it just all kind of went together. And so doing yoga in the classroom, what started back in 2008. And from there, I started working in schools doing school programming. So I left teaching like after my third year and went into specializing in children's yoga, early childhood specifically. And so for many, many years, I have gone into daycares and preschools and done like the yoga and mindfulness work in there. And it looks really different than you might expect. And it includes the classroom teachers, and it's just very like basic skills and fun and sweet and repetitive, and rhythmic. There's a lot of like rhythm, and you've probably seen like on my website all the visuals. Like, I just wanted there to be inclusion and representation in those. So I have those. I use those in the schools, and that's also something I do, is I provide like lesson plans and content and yoga cards, so that when the teachers provide them for the kids are like, this is for me. Like, I'm in this. So that's part of what I do. And what was out there wasn't very substantive. So as a career yoga teacher, I realized that the philosophy of yoga is really helpful in education. We have to use the plain English. So I've gone and pulled that methodology and pulled that philosophy out and put it into a secular format that schools can use. And so sometimes I'll just hear from a school district, hey, we bought this curriculum from you last year and we've implemented it district-wide. Like, it's really cool just having an impact in schools I'll never even step foot in. And then I do teacher training. So I have a registered children's yoga school, and who I mainly work with is parents, school teachers, school counselors, grandparents, yoga teachers, people that want to make a difference with kids. And I have a lot of dancers, actually, tons of dancers have come through, because it's not really like, you don't have to be a career yoga teacher to take a career yoga training, because the skills are so transferable. So when the pandemic hit, I went to an online format, and I've been able to work with people in Wyoming and Utah and now Arizona. It's really special. And so what I do is I look at the entire field of kids yoga, because it's actually quite expansive. All the things we can do. You can do mindfulness, you can do yoga, you can work in schools, you can start a business, you can, and so it's like, how do people take the classical yoga and translate it for their environment? So every time I work with somebody, it's like, who are you? What's your target student or child? what's your environment? And we have to make something for that. So they're taking like the components and the information, but they're adapting it to their own. So it's never like a formulaic thing. It's very much like a mentorship. And I'm literally watching 11 videos of every person in the training. They are sending me their entire progress. And so there is a true community being built. And so they're going out and they're transforming their communities. It's been really helpful for my like self-esteem, I think, to see the impact in this way, because I used to do kid by kid by kid, and I was working in dozens of schools. And now that school programming is kaput, like I am barely doing school programming because of COVID. I'm so grateful to have people on the front lines in all of these different areas that I can support. And so that's like my next course starts October 1st. There's a foundations course, which anybody can take. Anybody can take all the courses, but the whole 95 hours is like truly, if you want to start a career and you want to know exactly how to talk and how to do a proposal and how to create, you end up making a portfolio in the course, like all these videos, and you're ready. And people who take the foundations, it tends to be teachers that want to make changes or parents that want to make changes, but they're not ready to take on the responsibility of an entire certification. But like last time, almost everybody ended up staying on for the whole thing because they were so excited. So it's been really amazing being able to be there to support parents and teachers. And I feel excited, but I'm also like, is it going to, like, are people going to be able to keep doing this? Like the economy's so terrible. So a little bit of me is like crossing my fingers that I get enough people for the fall. I've had really great turnout so far. And but right now, school teachers don't even know what they're doing. Schools are like open and they're closed. And so for them to make that time commitment has been tough. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, anybody you know, hi, everyone, come to me. I have plenty of room in the course. And it is, the last thing I'll say is it's a responsibility I don't take lightly, building up the community. And we have all of the graduates have a private Facebook group where we talk, and we end up, and like we like Zoom, like I Zoom with all my private groups of trainees, like even when they're done, like just to stay together and make sure, like, because it can be such a isolating thing to be doing something and trying to create a culture shift, whether you're trying to do mindfulness or yoga in a community or whatever it is. You're working against institutions that believe in maybe something else, and it doesn't matter how much data there is, it can be really isolating to be the one doing it. But what's great is they end up having a lot of progress and incremental change happens, and then having somebody to look and say, hey, 2 years ago you didn't have a single class and now you're all across the county, right? So like people can make these changes. And this is what we talked about on the phone too. I want everyone to know who's listening, you don't have to make a humongous culture shift overnight. This is incremental. That's why self-care Saturdays, little things too. Incrementalism works. And as a teacher and as a practitioner of yoga, it's worked for my life to every day do a little bit. And so people who are like, I can't do yoga training because I can't quit my job. You don't have to quit your job. It's about adapting your job. It's about looking for opportunities where the community needs you and understanding like where you fit into your community and what role you could have in, just like you're trying to affect change on the policy level, the people under my umbrella are affecting change school by school, district by district, classroom by classroom. And I'm in a district right now on their 5th year of working with me. They've been sending their teachers to do trainings, and I do professional development, and I, work with their students, and they're far away. Like it's a distance relationship, but we've kept it going because they're seeing something. And it's really gratifying to have these 5 and 7 and 8 year long relationships in schools, because I want you to know change will happen. Policy, I think, is really helpful, but it's also about incremental, digestible steps that principals won't be like, no way, no way. They're like, okay, I can try a pilot.
Yeah, no, it's so important. Baby steps in anything. You really, as passionate as you are about something, you cannot expect that change overnight. And especially in schools, I mean, there's studies happening right now that are changing the face of the medical industry, right? But medical students aren't going to get that knowledge until probably 8 to 10 years later. And that's just how slow things are.
It
So
is
I mean,
crazy that the entire education system is built on like basically when my grandma's in her 80s, when she went to school, it was for practical life skills. Like she learned to balance a checkbook, she learned how to do her taxes, she learned how to keep a home, and she was ready for life. She still references those books in her 80s. But then around Sputnik in that era where like the Cold War, education changed to be like reactive to that. And that's why we have like weird math that makes no sense, but we are missing all of the like technological and cultural changes because institutions are so slow to change. So I think it does take people like you like are going to have a platform as Miss Arizona, and like me, who like we have maybe not the biggest reach, but we do have a reach. We need to
expanding for sure.
live it, but also like walk with them and be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. And any little thing that happens is in the right direction. You know, there's talk about, curriculum and that representation you talked about that you're aware of, for diversity and things like that. And I know that the curriculum changes are going to take years, but as long as you don't say, because I used to be one of those people, like, I'm one person, what can I really do?
Yeah.
But, then you try actually making a difference and stepping into it, and you see how much change you can actually make. So it does happen. It's going to happen slower than you want, but it will happen. And as long as you start it, if you never start it, it's not going to happen. There's going to be less.
And acknowledging, like, here's the other thing. I think people like you and me are achievers. We miss our achievements because we keep moving the goalpost. So I think you and I and anyone else like that needs to recognize, even if it was smaller than your goal, it was something. And if you don't take a moment and that's the mindfulness working. It's like, take a moment to bask in what you've made before you just move the goalpost. Like,
yeah, that's so
I
true.
did this, I worked hard on it, put my entire heart into this. I'm very proud of it. Acknowledging all the people that were involved in it. I think that is how if we don't do that, we miss the impact that we are making.
Yeah,
and
you're
probably lost
too, because
yeah.
then you don't realize what you've accomplished. And I do that same thing. That is very true.
I can smell it from I don't know, 2,000 miles away or however far you are.
Yeah. Another element that's great about the yoga is I find as a dancer and dancing my whole life that people are so disconnected from their bodies. Like we're in our headspace all the time in school, right? And we're just here all day. Like all the energy is just right here. And the only time you get out of it is maybe PE or if you like go outside, and that's just so disconnected from everything else. I have a friend who's a Spanish teacher, and she teaches at the Sign Language Academy in New Mexico, and she started teaching Spanish and having the kids moving around and doing movements with the, with
aesthetic learning,
and kind of like integrating some dance into, pedestrian type dance, but still like movement into the teaching. And we've talked about that, like how we see, and even me like teaching fitness right now, I'll do a simple coordination thing, and it's like people are not used to doing that, and it's kind of odd. And I think that it could really benefit people to be connected to the physical and connected to their bodies, because that connects everything, right? And so I love that there's that what you're doing and that whole movement aspect and mindfulness. I think that movement is so important, and it's not just about, which is great, take a break, take a brain break and go outside and move, but also like, integrating everything together is what I'm trying to get at here. And so I love what my friend is doing as an educator. I think we need more of that, and not like, okay, all day we're going to be here and then we're going to go just like on a 30-minute run, and that's going to like, everything is like separate, Yeah.
Well, and I do think that's why like having regular teachers and parents do trainings like mine or dance or whatever it is, and recognize how good you felt in that hour and how much your brain is connected to your body, and you like, get out of your head once you start to understand it better, then we know we can sprinkle that throughout the day. We feel confident how to sprinkle it throughout the day. And then there is no reason not to. And what I hear people say is there isn't time, but the people who invest the time September to November and make a formal activity out of it, their children are functional and learning and in touch. And they're spending less time managing behavior and more time connection. Like the connection happens because we're out of our, like you look at students and they're so checked out. Sometimes they're vacant from their bodies because they're not in their, like what you said, that mind body connection. If they look vacant from their body or they look stuck in their head or worried, there's no way we are going to make progress. Whether you're a teacher or a parent or whatever you're trying to do.
That chi around.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't care if it like truly, like I'm a yoga person, so I love yoga, but I don't care if it's yoga. I don't care. Like it can be dance, it can be qigong, it can be all of it, as long as it's something, and that we are moving in different ways every day. And we're not just sitting in a chair in front of a computer. And like here's just a small takeaway is like, can you close your eyes today? Can you get out in front of the screen, close your eyes, because your other senses are like, hey, I can smell, I can hear, there's birds. Like we can miss it because we're in the eyes and we're in like the head, and we miss a lot of the other stuff. And so it's like, it's
and I
really
think it
great.
also, not only that, it creates a culture of people. We have a whole society of people who say they don't like exercise. And for me, I'm just like, how is that possible? Like you can hate exercise in like the way that it's, kind of, I don't know, like
It's very goal oriented and rigid. Yeah.
like running 5 miles or things like that.
Mhm.
But how can you hate moving your body? It's because it hasn't been integrated in as a human being. We're
Yeah.
meant to move all day long in nature, right? And so it's just like, it's because our society has conditioned us to view exercise as something separate from everything else that we do, right? So it's like if we
Yeah.
if we just get back to the roots of how we are and try to integrate that as much as possible into our daily lives. I don't exercise every day. I move.
Yeah.
I go out and stretch, if anything. If that's the least I do, I go out and breathe and stretch for a few minutes. A walk. Like it doesn't have to be anything
Don't you
crazy.
notice how when you walk and breathe and stretch, you end up drinking more water, and then you know what your body's actually hungry for, and you make better health choice. It is a cascade that if people can just get out of their own way, get a little time outside, move your body, even if it's just a walk, even if it's just a stretch, even if it's like 10 minutes of chair yoga. Yeah, some of the schools I support, the educators, I'll just do like 15 minutes of mindfulness and 15 minutes of chair yoga, and then we'll chat. That's it. Like it's no big deal. And they're all like, it's the best part of their week. And I always ask why. And it's because without me, they may not otherwise do it. And so I always want to work myself out of the job eventually. Like this is the best teacher is someone who can leave you with the skill set, and like whether it's an adult or a child that I'm working with, I want them to have the bravery to be on their own without me sitting and like doing exactly as you describe as you're doing on your own, that they have a practice and it's flexible, and it's not like, oh, I have to do my 60 minutes of exercise because my doctor said. It's like it's a window into yourself, it's a window into your health, and it's not extra, and you don't have to make time for it. It should be built in. We have to build it in. Like if you looked at the way I structure my days, it is absolutely built in, because I know when I did like the times I said I was too busy, like putting my training online for in March, and I didn't do that, I totally lost it. I lost my mind. And so how do we make excuses? I think that's part of a culture we're in. Like I'm busy, I have this, but when we really look at it, like we are losing out on ourselves when we do that. We miss ourselves, and we're not comfortable in our bodies when we're not moving. And usually once you start moving, you realize, oh my gosh, I've got so much like so many kinks, I gotta get these out. And then you move more. So it is just the invitation I want to leave people with today is to have the bravery, have the bravery to do something every day. 2, seek out a teacher and study with that person as long as you need the support and mentorship. Because without I'm like, I don't have a teacher right now, and I'm looking for a teacher for myself. Like, having a teacher means you have someone to look up to and a mentor, and that is like, just because you're grown, you can still have that. And so those are my two wisdom pieces. Do you have a nugget of wisdom for anyone today?
A takeaway here. Yeah. There's a lot of things we talked about. Just, yeah, just, I would say even don't even wait for that, that guidance. That having the accountability and guidance is amazing. Take, you know, even if it's just like we said, just a couple minutes. I don't even sit down and watch TV. If I ever watch like a show or something, I'm not sitting on the couch. Like I'm just like moving and stretching and like, you know,
You need to meet my sister. You guys are twins.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it means for you, don't make it into a thing where it's like you have to do this meditation or exercise or yoga. Like going to a class, sometimes I need to go to a class. I need to go to yoga. I'm like, you know what? I haven't stretched in a while. Like I need that re-up. I need to go and have a really deep stretch and be accountable for all of that. And also all the other benefits and having that, you know, spiritual connection as well. But, you know, there's so much that we can do on our own. I would say, I guess my takeaway is like also to connect everything together as far as the issues that I'm dealing with and the, you know, all the politics involved in things. Be open-minded to all, you know, to hearing people. Be open-minded to hearing people that are outside of your belief system. Try not to, and this is like, try not to, because it's just natural to judge and to categorize and to,
or notice when you're judging. Yeah, notice when you're judging.
Yeah, just be with that, but be aware that you're doing that. Mm-hmm. And then just also try to listen without, you know, there's times where I want to say so much and I want to talk and talk and talk, but you learn so much by listening. So in this kind of great divide that we're in right now, in an election year and all the things that are happening, mask, no mask, this, you know, just, I would say, just try your best to listen and see from the other person's perspective for a moment, and just try to take a breath and see, you know, in those person's shoes, why they might think that way. And it's just like an exercise, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to subscribe to their beliefs, but just like, hey, maybe we can develop a little bit more understanding for each other.
Yeah, and in my wheelhouse, that's either called active listening or mindful listening. And it's one of the things I facilitate in my Foundations of Kids Yoga course, is like, rather than a conversation, there are times when we actually are called to listen only or be listened to, when you're the speaker or the audience. And it's not a back and forth. It's about letting one person air what's inside and get it out in a state of presence, an objective presence. Like, just sit and listen. And I think that because we're taught to always have a conversation, we're very uncomfortable as somebody who's just actively listening. But I think if we did more active listening and mindful listening with people across the aisle politically, or, you know, somebody with a certain disability who has trouble getting into the building, talking to the person who's in charge of the building, right? Like these types of conversations, just letting them, like I was listening to a disability rights activist on a podcast today, and she was talking about the what the difficulties are getting to the polls for different types of people. And it was amazing just to hear her and listen to her. And I felt so open to her, but of course I was not in a conversation. And I think we can seek out relationships where we go to listen. And that is something that's so important. And I cannot agree with that more, especially when it comes to trying to find solutions in school districts or entire schools or counties or states about the problems we are facing, whether it's equity or mental health. And I think you're right, there is a stigma, but we are all suffering from mental health crises, whether it's acute or something you have as a diagnosis. We don't all have a diagnosis, but all of us have mental health issues from time to time. And if we could listen a little bit better, I think it would be a better environment for all of us to learn in.
Yeah. Yay. Well, thank you so much
Happy.
for having me.
Thank you too. Before you go, is there anything you want to plug and how should people look for you?
Okay, so I have 2 Instagram accounts. Maybe we can link them underneath these videos.
Yep.
But Kyra King, that's Kyra King _ Vibe Healthy is my personal account, and Miss AZ for America is my Miss Arizona account on Instagram, and then on Facebook I'm Kyra King. I'll be posting all my updates on those 2 things. So anything else that you need to know, I'll be linking to those accounts. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, just to talk and get to know each other. And I'm always like, a phone call or an email away. And to anyone listening to this point, I love you. And I hope that you will reach out to me as well. Thank you. And we'll talk soon.
okay, bye.
Bye.